So, you watch the media, you know that they can't stop talking about Russia, Russia, Russia. And we've talked about that on the show, why it's kind of ridiculous, right? Because the reason why Russia presses a button in our brain is because there was a Cold War and we were afraid that the Russians, who were communists, were infiltrating our country through workers' unions and that they were going to take over with a communist manifesto ideology. They're not communists anymore. They're crony capitalists, just like the United States. So what's the fear of Russia? That they're going to take over and they're going to, spread more crony capitalism? So that's why it all doesn't make any sense. Also, lots of other reasons. Well, here's another reason. Here's Noam Chomsky. He was on Democracy Now!, and they asked him about the media's obsession with the Russia thing. And here's his response. Let's just listen.
It's a pretty remarkable fact that, first of all, it is a joke. Half of the world is cracking up in laughter. The United States doesn't just interfere in elections. It overthrows governments it doesn't like, institutes military dictatorships. Simply in the case of Russia,
Okay, so immediately he lets you know this is all manufactured garbage and that we're a laughingstock to the rest of the world. And why? Why? Because we're running around screaming our heads off about Russia hacking into our election when he knows, everybody in the world knows, that we overthrow governments left and right. We just did it in Iraq. We did it in Iran. We did it in Libya. We're trying to do it right now in Syria. We did it in Afghanistan. We did it in Honduras. We did it in the Ukraine. Where the frick haven't we done it? Overthrown a democratically elected government, I mean. Where haven't we done it? And where haven't we overthrown governments? Where haven't we overthrown just overthrown them? We overthrew the democratically elected president of Iran, Mossadegh. That's how and then we installed the Shah, because Mossadegh was he wanted to bring democracy, and we couldn't have that. So then we got the Shah in Iran, which then they revolted, and now we have a theocracy in Iran. That's how the CIA worked it out for us. Then we did it in Iraq, and now look what happened. We did it in Libya, and now look what happened. We did it in Afghanistan, and now look what we're doing, trying to do it in Syria. We did it in the Ukraine. We did it in Honduras. Okay, so there's that part. So
let's not forget, we do it in the United States. We just do it with a thing called the Electoral College.
We do it with a thing called the Electoral College. Great point, Ron. Yeah, we do it here too. We undermine democracy in the United States by a thing called the Electoral College. 40%, as my friend Ben Mankiewicz points out, 40% of the presidential elections this century have gone to the loser. In the United States, this is the kind of democracy we want to export around the world. We used to say that. We want to just export our democracy. We want to export democracy to where the person who gets millions less votes becomes president.
Export democracy, import oil. Win-win.
Win-win.
That's how we see it.
So he's got more to say about this ridiculous thing.
It's the least of it. The U.S. government under Clinton intervened quite blatantly and openly. They didn't try to conceal it to get their man Yeltsin in all sorts of ways.
Oh, so you're saying the United States had overtly and blatantly interfered in Russia's election to try to get Yeltsin in? Oh, you know what? I was alive back then. I remember that. So we were the ones who actually did screw with their elections? Isn't that something? But they didn't bomb us? Isn't that weird?
So this, as I say, it's turning the United States again into a laughingstock in the world. So why are the Democrats focusing on this? In fact, why are they focusing so much attention on the one element of Trump's programs, which is fairly reasonable, the one ray of light in this gloom, trying to reduce tensions with Russia? The tensions on the Russian border are extremely serious. they could escalate to a major terminal war.
And so when people like Rachel Maddow go on TV and say Russia hacking into John Podesta's email is an act of international warfare, she's either completely lost her mind or she's on purpose trying to start a war with Russia for whatever other reason. So those are your two options. She's either completely lost her mind or she on purpose is pushing propaganda to start a war with Russia. What is the other option? She's mistaken? Do you hear Chomsky? We're a goddamn laughingstock in the world. We're the ones who intervene in other people's elections. Okay, more to it.
Efforts to try to reduce them should be welcomed. A couple of days ago, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Jack Matlock, came out and said he just can't believe that so much attention is being paid to apparent efforts by the incoming administration to establish connections with Russia. I said, sure, that's just what they ought to be doing. So meanwhile, this one topic is the primary locus of concern and critique, while meanwhile the policies are proceeding step by step, which are extremely destructive and harmful.
So what he's saying is that the media is focusing on this one topic, this Russia topic, at what? At the loss of all the other topics, of all real stuff that's actually happening. That's what he's saying.
So, yeah, maybe the Russians tried to interfere in the election. That's not a major issue. Maybe the people...
Which is what I've been saying all along. What is the big deal? Let's say Russia did hack into John Podesta's email, take his emails, and then gave them to a news agency, an award-winning news agency called WikiLeaks. What's the... So what? So what? What those emails revealed was that the DNC was cheating Bernie Sanders. That's what those emails revealed, and that the people in the Clinton campaign knew she was a horrible candidate. Those are the two big things they revealed. And by the way, if those emails didn't reveal anything, because that's what everybody said in the media, the lefty press, the Democrats, MSNBC, there's nothing new in those emails. There's no news there. Well, then how did they swing the election? So if nothing was in those emails that was damaging or new information, how did that swing the election? So you see, when you start lying, it's easy to catch you when you're lying, and they're lying. They're lying about that. They're lying about that Russia was the reason Hillary Clinton lost. Hillary Clinton lost because she is bona fide the worst fucking Democratic presidential nominee in the history of the party. She was the second most hated person in the country when she ran for president, and she managed to lose to the one person more despised than her. And we've articulated in a million ways to Sunday. They've done studies in universities about how horrible her campaign was. That wasn't Russia telling her not to go to Wisconsin. That wasn't Russia telling her not to go to Michigan. That wasn't Russia telling her to go to the right and pick Tim Kaine and stick another thumb in the... It wasn't Russia did any of that. So, you want to say something, Ron?
Well, you pointed out like a few hypocrisies in the media and the people that they keep pushing this Russia thing. Another big one that I've noticed, you brought up the emails. Well, first they said like, oh, these are the victims. Don't you have emails you'd rather the public not see? Like they're the victims here. John Podesta's the victims. The DNC are the victims. But then they say Russia spread misinformation. Well, which is it? If they're victims because the emails were their emails and that's like an invasion of privacy thing, then how did they spread misinformation too if the emails were real? It can't be both.
Can't be both. Also, if you're a victim, how is Trump not a victim? Somebody got his tax returns and released them too. Oh, it's not because it happened to Trump. Is that not another contradiction, blatant hypocritical contradiction, Ron?
That is a contradiction, and just for the record, I don't think any of them are victims. I don't
No,
think Trump's
I don't
a
think
victim.
so
I don't
either.
think the DNC is either. But yeah, by that logic, then yes, Trump is a victim too. By that logic.
The Trump campaign were talking to the Russians. Well, okay, not a major point, certainly.
So this is what I would do when I would go on news shows. Even when I went on the Young Turks, I was like, so what's the big deal? What do we think happened? What is the smoking gun? What did Trump do that everyone thinks he did with Russia? Do we think that somehow he's in bed with Russia to overthrow the United States? Because he's already in control of the United States. So that's why that doesn't make any sense. So what's the thing? Is he secretly a communist? Is he secretly a red? Or is it that somehow there's a Russian oligarch who loaned him money and now he owes a favor? So it could be a Russian oligarch, could be a French oligarch, an Italian oligarch, an Austrian oligarch, an Australian oligarch. Somebody lends him money and they open. I don't understand. So this is what I keep asking. What's the big deal? And this is exactly what Chomsky's saying. So his members of his campaign talk with Russians. Big deal. That's what he just said. That's what I've been saying. And I'm just a dumb jack-off nightclub comedian, and I've been asking everybody on every news show I go on, what's the big deal? And nobody can fucking tell me. Isn't that weird, Ron?
Well, they were colluding with Russia. What exactly does that mean? We don't know, but Trump still sucks. That's where it's at this point.
Okay, Chomsky's backing up every suspicion I had, every theory I made. He's backing it up right here.
Less than is being done constantly. And it is a kind of a paradox, I think, that the one issue that seems to inflame the Democratic opposition is the one thing that has some justification and reasonable aspects to it.
So there you go. The one great thing about Trump was that he wanted to de-escalate tensions with Russia. And now it seems like everybody on the left wants to ramp up tensions. That seems a little backwards. They're calling for World War III. And that last point he made, I didn't really understand it. The one thing that... Did you do it?
Well, I think what he's saying, because I mentioned this yesterday, like this video clip yesterday, what he's saying is that, yeah, I don't think he's saying that, like, Putin's great or Trump's great or anything like that, but I think he's saying that, hey, whether we like it or not, the fact that there's a little bit of getting along between these two entities is not a bad thing, because, yeah, even though they're corrupt assholes, that's better than a war.
Yeah, so whatever, so yeah, I've been saying the same thing. So whatever reason we don't go to World War III, whether it's because, you know, Trump wants to impress a girl or he wants to get invited to Putin's, you know, summer home, I don't know, I don't care. As long as we don't go to World War III. I don't care.
Yeah, corrupt assholes are still going to be friends. That's not changing. Preventing World War III, that's a cool thing I'd like to continue.
Yeah. And so he brings this up. So Chomsky, and by the way, this is all you're hearing in the media. And advertisers are lining up. They can't buy enough ads on Rachel Maddow's show. They can't buy enough ads. MSNBC's Maddow covers Russia more than all other topics combined. That's not a news show. That's a propaganda outlet. That's not a news show. That's propaganda. And shame on MSNBC and shame on Rachel Maddow. And anybody who goes on her show and doesn't hold her feet to the fire, shame on you.
Well, and Jimmy, can we point out how this is really bringing out some craziness in a lot of people that I always thought we were on the same side of the fence with?
Yeah.
I mean, there are people on Twitter and social media.
They're out of their minds about this.
They're out of their mind about this. They're saying that RT is a Kremlin puppet in this and that. And you know, I mean, I've had people literally go as far as to say, like, they're spies and this and that. And I'm just like, I mean, Lee Camp, a comedian, friend of this show who has a TV show on RT. Not only do I know him, I know people that work for him. And I'm listening to these people on social media. I'm like, you're literally telling me that friends of mine that I used to do open mics with on the comedy circuit are Russian spies.
Shouldn't-
And you don't realize why you sound insane to me.
Dude, they don't realize that the reason why Russia was able to open a television network in the United States is because they're not fucking communists. Because they're goddamn crony capitalists, just like the United States. We did intervene in their election. We did get Yeltsin put in. We did export the worst form of capitalism to Russia. We did that. We're supposed to be friends with Russia. The Democrats spent a whole year making fun of the Republicans and Mitt Romney for saying we were still in that Russia was our geopolitical foe. So, and this is the kind of stuff that advertisers are lining up to buy ads on. This and us telling the actual truth. They're pulling the rug out from underneath us. I don't know. Is that a conspiracy that right before they want to start World War III, they pull the fucking rug out from underneath us?
Well, it's so ironic, you know.
The only people by the way, in the old media telling the truth about Syria, telling the truth about Russia. Go ahead, Steffi.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, it's so ironic, you know, that you'll have all these advertisers on this propaganda show, but you certainly, you know, Bill O'Reilly, they're pulling all the advertisement on him because of his sexual harassments. So they have a conscience for a minute, but it's like I want to boycott everybody that advertises on MSNBC and NBC. So
I think it's funny that they're pulling the money from Fox now. This is a different subject we'll cover, but they're pulling the money from Fox now because of Bill O'Reilly's sexual harassment. The goddamn head of the network was the worst sexual harasser in the world, and they gave him $40 million to go away. And you guys stop advertising? No. Bill O'Reilly had to do an out-of-court settlement with his producer, 12 years ago? Everybody knows about it. The tape got audio tape got they knew he was so you sexually harass somebody, and 12 years later, those fucking advertisers are going to grow a conscience. Just like that.